And then when you go through perimenopause and menopause and you stop having that monthly, very clear signal to the physiology and to the brain, if you can track it, right, that this is a time of rest. If you don't have that anymore, then the risk, I guess, is that you don't ever take those deep, rejuvenating days off where maybe you're not even walking or swimming, but maybe you're taking a long hot bath, which, as we know, does a lot for your lymph. Maybe you're going into a sauna, which does a lot for your lymph. Welcome to the world of energy, where science meets spirit. Ancient wisdom merges with cutting-edge knowledge, and the possibilities for a healthier, happier you are endless.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Energy Works. I'm with Lauren. This is Blaine. And today we're going to do a different kind of episode because we're going to have a conversation that we've been meaning to have just offline for months. I don't know, a long time. Lauren asks me every once in a while about rest days because I am an exerciser and she is an exerciser. And you can't just exercise without some rest. You have to let your body rest and recover. And so she's had curiosity about how much I rest and when I rest and how do I know I need to rest and stuff like that. But we never, we just have to talk about business or whatever else was going on in that moment. And so she never gets her questions answered very well by me. And then it just came up again and the subject of exercise, period. And so we thought, let's just flip on the microphones and the camera and record this conversation because while we love yoga and we love doing our Eden energy medicine techniques, and sometimes we do them separately, sometimes we do them at the same time in this thing that Lauren created called energy medicine yoga, where we do our energy work on ourselves while we're also doing our yoga practice. We also need to move our body, especially because we are business women and we are often sitting in chairs or working on computers or that sort of thing. And so unless we make ourselves get out and move, we have more of a sedentary lifestyle, which truly is where I think most of us find ourselves these days. Unless we are intentionally not being sedentary, then we have a pretty sedentary lifestyle. And the longevity data shows us that we need to move. So that is our topic today. So Lauren, I'll kick it over to you and maybe I'll let you frame the question and we can get into it.
Yeah, thanks, Blaine. So, Blaine is a competitive athlete. So I just want to sort of say that and the difference. I am a recreational athlete and she is a competitive athlete. And so right there are going to be some differences. And this is why I always want to ask her because I feel like what she's doing is going to be at the more of the cutting edge of the science and the physiology than what I'm doing. At the same time, the recreational athleticism that I do is very intense, like in very, very full on physical. I'm a downhill skier. That's probably the most physical torque that I do in terms of my athleticism. And it's no joke. Like every day that I'm up there, it is full on. It requires just, balance and timing, incredible strength, flexibility, uh, shock absorption, like all of it. And so the question really came about the most recent time that I asked is because I've also been making a commitment to do weight training, which if you want to live really, really long, which Blaine and I both do, I've always said that I want to live to 120. And both of us are really steeped and steeping more and more in longevity research and practices. And weightlifting is at the very top. If you want to have a long lifespan and a long health span, which is the amount of time that you are healthy while you're alive, you need to add weight training to your repertoire, period, end of sentence. Like that is non negotiable. And so I've been flirting with it for a long time. I come in and out of it, but I've just recently made that solid commitment. I'm going to do it. I found a program that I love and I am committed to it. And it's simple. It's 3 days a week, a half an hour. Like this is not a big deal, but it's a commitment. So I have that commitment to myself. And so I am skiing and then I'm weight training. And in the winter, that's kind of all that I'm doing. I go for walks as well to kind of get the lactic acid out of my body. And I go cross country skiing as well. I do a lot in the winter time. That's like my favorite sports time. So I went skiing the other day. It was a powder day and it was really intense, hard, fun, but really hard skiing. And I skied maybe a couple runs more than I would have because I bumped into some friends. And I got home and I was wiped in the best way, but I was exhausted. And it was a Monday, which is usually the day I lift. And I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to lift today because didn't I sort of just lift all day up on the ski hill? I'm going to bump it and lift tomorrow. So I went to sleep that night and I got up the next morning and I already knew I wasn't going to ski I had other things. That wasn't my ski day, but I was going to lift. Now, I was already tired. My muscles were sore, like everything was tired. This is the day after the full-on workout day. But I made a commitment to myself. I had already pushed off my lifting one day. It's only a half an hour. I'm committed. I'm going to do it. And I lifted. I lifted at 9:30 in the morning. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I knew something was wrong. And my back, which has a little weak link in it that I know about, was starting to like kind of holler to me. And I had a dinner with some friends and I'm sitting in the restaurant and I'm massaging my back. This is not good. I got home, I turned my biomat in and I climbed into bed. And the next day, Wednesday, I couldn't move. I spent all day horizontal on the bed. And I called Blaine. I was like, or I texted her. I couldn't even call. I texted her and I was just like, okay, what's rest day protocol? Because clearly Tuesday should have been a rest day, a full rest day. And if I had listened to my body, which was saying, you're a little tweaked today, maybe you don't want to lift, I wouldn't have been flat on my back on Wednesday. And I'm just going to stop there and let Blaine jump in because I know you've got so many thoughts about everything I've already just said.
I do. And, to share my background a little bit, I became a personal trainer, like a weightlifting personal trainer in 1991 and a certified one and a certified group exercise instructor in 1991. So it's like over 30 years ago. I've been studying this and I've been a marathon running coach. I could, obviously the yoga, I taught aerobics for years and years. I mean, I've done a lot and I'm actually 90% done becoming a certified menopause coaching specialist. So I've been diving, like Lauren said, into the longevity and the menopause and working with women in their postmenopausal years. But I've also I've had coaches. I've been a competitive athlete for a long time. I mean, even from childhood, but I mean, we didn't really talk about this kind of stuff in high school and college. But as an adult athlete, I have had, Olympic athletes, who are coaches now have been my coaches. And so I've been receiving coaching advice as well as giving coaching advice for a really long time. And so I will say, this is why people have coaches. And so everything that Lauren and I are saying, please understand that we are not your coach. We are not giving you personal advice for your personal situation. That is why you hire people to work with you one-on-one to be really specific. So let me just start with that. And I also want to say that when I'm generally talking about rest days, I'm talking about when you're not injured. You're not sick and you're not injured. Because if you're sick or you're injured, a rest day is a whole different thing. I have a partner with 4 broken ribs right now from skiing. He is in a lot of rest days right now. He is very injured. And so I just want to say like the general rest day is under the umbrella of you're healthy and you're doing the things you do and you are not sick and you are not injured. And so I'll just dive into that, and then we can get into the sick and injured and, how do you know, and that sort of thing
Because I wasn't
as we
injured
continue
yet.
to
I
talk.
wasn't injured yet. Right. So I just want to say that because that is a big distinction. We'll talk about that. But on this point, on the Tuesday, I wasn't injured yet.
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 Yet. And so we'll go to that next. Because there are recommended intervals between things. Like I don't go for a run and do a heavy leg lifting day in like a 24-hour period. Like I don't go for a long run and do heavy legs within like 24 hours of each other, right? Like I would lift upper body and not legs if I had done a long run. And so there are kind of like periodization, like intervals that you can create. But in general, I'm going to say this is the high level. And I know, Lauren doesn't love this, I don't think, but I don't. And this is based on years of being an athlete and working with coaches and the advice I got from coaches and experimenting with my own body, as well as what the literature says. We want to move our body every day. The body does not do well being sedentary all the time. Specifically, we want to move lymph. That is how we detox. That is how we're all taking in toxins all the time. We want our detox pathways, of which we have many. We want our lymph. We want to drink a lot of water. We want to move our bodies, and we want to move the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system does not move on its own. It only moves if you move your body. And we want to at least move enough to let the lymphatic system get going every single day. And so does that mean no rest days? I mean, I think that's where Lauren and I sometimes get a little tangled up, because on we'll say it's a rest day. Like it is a day that I do not have a scheduled training. I will go for a walk, easy, or I will go for a swim, easy. I don't swim so much these days, but back when I used to swim a lot. Spin on the bike, really easy, roll out my yoga mat and do some easy, comfortable yoga, just moving my body. And so I do not take a day where I literally am just laying on the couch all day in some kind of recovery mode unless I am sick or injured. And if I'm sick or injured, that is a different thing. So I always move to flush. And because these are situations where I'm not sick or injured, a rest day, I think, implies I'm resting after doing something, right? And so the thing that I've done has probably put a lot of lactic acid in my body. I probably have waste product in my body that needs to be flushed out. And I had times when I was newer, especially when I was doing Ironman. And I mean, just to frame it, when you're a serious competitor in Ironman and you're in peak training, you're training 24, 25 hours a week. And so I had a full-time job and I was traveling and I was training 24. You're not doing that year round, but that's like, kind of a few weeks at your peak before your race. And so there were times I was just like, oh my God, I'm just going to it's Saturday. Like, I'm just going to lay on the couch all day. And then I would get up Sunday morning to train and I was like my body felt like crap. My mind felt like crap. I could barely move and I had a terrible workout. And then I learned if instead of laying on the couch all day, I just went for an easy swim or, which is what the coach tells you to do. On my schedule, on my rest day, the coach would say, easy 25 minutes. Just get in the water, do some easy laps. You're not getting the heart rate, If I would actually do that like I was supposed to, then the next day I felt way better when I had to train hard. And so that is how I frame rest day. And I'm going to hand it back to Lauren, but I do want to get to her question because she didn't know she was injured or she wasn't injured. Maybe she wasn't even injured yet, but she was in a place of fatigue because she had worked out really hard. And so in some kind of fatigued state, she went into this other workout, which it seems resulted in her being injured. And this is where you work with a coach, because here's the thing. We can't see our own blind spots. We get all up in our head on what we should be doing, and we cannot see our own blind spots. And so that is where, working with someone else or learning from your mistakes, which I'm sure Lauren just got a little lesson in that, when we've worked our body really hard, then it's not that we do nothing, but maybe we wait another 24 hours before we work our body hard again. Lauren.
Yeah, yeah, no, all of that is so wonderful. And at some point we have to just have a podcast about all of the races that you've done and all of that. It's just amazing to me that you've done Ironmans and all kinds of Iron Womans and all kinds of other things is just so fascinating to me. But yes, I think one of the that idea of rest day is not a do nothing day, that the constant moving of the lymph, and I think too, like, I do have days where I won't. I don't know if that's even true. I think I'll always go for a walk, like something, but I don't consider that a workout, and maybe that's, like, a little bit of the difference. But what I think the issue for me became, which I'm glad you said you're up in your head, it's this it was a over yang, the yin yang, right? And I over yang because I had done this big day that I didn't really think of it as a workout because I'm skiing, right? And it's fun and I'm not really thinking workout, although I was absolutely 100% fatigued. And what happened was what I came up against is commitment. I have made a commitment to myself that I'm going to do this lift 3 days a week. And I know that, I need to take a full day off in between each of those lifts as well. And now I had already missed a day because I was supposed to lift on Monday and I didn't. So now I'm going on 3 days without a lift, and that's going to mess up my whole blah, 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 blah for the rest of the week. And I had made this commitment, and I know myself, if I start to slip on those, "Oh, I can do it the next day. I'm gonna do it the next day." Of course, now it's been 6 or 5 days since I lifted after that, injury, but at the moment, that's what I was coming up against, this idea that I had made this commitment to myself, and so, "Oh, I'm a little tired, but whatever, I'm just it's a 30-minute lift. It's not like I'm not lifting the kind of weights that you lift, Blaine. It's light lifting, so maybe it's gonna be okay." And that was the crux moment that I didn't really tune into, and when I was spending all of day Wednesday in bed and learning my lessons, one of the things that I came back to, and I was doing all my energy work, right? Because I couldn't do anything else. So I'm lying in bed and I'm doing all my holds, and there's quite a lot you can do when you're actually not up and about. And one of the things was this deep listening of, and you can't see me if you're not on a video, but I'm crossing my hands over my upper chest. So I'm holding lungs, I'm holding heart. I'm basically like holding myself and saying like, it's okay. You messed up. It's okay. It's not going to be, forever. And your lesson is that you always need to deeply listen, to deeply listen. And if you do that, your body is going to tell you, like that last run that I did with Gigi, like, I shouldn't have done that last run. And it extra fatigued me because the snow was difficult at that point in the day. But I didn't listen to that because I wanted to do that last run with Gigi. And then the next day, I wanted to do that lift. I had committed to this and I was excited about it, right? So I didn't listen. So I feel like there is, aside from, the coaching and the list of the things you're supposed to do every day, there needs to be this deep listening, especially as we age, as we go through, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. When you're a younger woman, even as a younger woman athlete, you have a menstrual cycle every month. And in Ayurveda and in, the sister science of yoga, it is very clear that that is a time of month when you do not do anything physical. You are encouraged to, as much as possible with whatever your life is, to do nothing, to rest, to let your body do the deep rejuvenating cleansing that it's doing. And then when you go through perimenopause and menopause and you stop having that monthly, very clear signal to the physiology and to the brain, if you can track it, right, that this is a time of rest. If you don't have that anymore, then the risk, I guess, is that you don't ever take those deep, rejuvenating days off where maybe you're not even walking or swimming, but maybe you're taking a long hot bath, which, as we know, does a lot for your lymph. Maybe you're going into a sauna, which does a lot for your lymph. Maybe if you like cold plunging, you're doing that. It doesn't seem very rejuvenating to me, but people love it and it does a lot for your lymph, right? So maybe, and you're drinking broths and fluids that help maybe you're doing some gentle yoga, but you are still honoring this c cyclical time of taking this deep rest, and I think that becomes a little harder after you no longer are cycling every month to tune in, "Well, when should I take that 1 or 2 or 3 days where I go inward and do this very deep yin rejuvenation time," which is really what is happening at that time. So, I didn't listen, and then I got an injury, and then I listened because, of course, injuries are great teachers. So I'm gonna hit back to you, Blaine, and see what you think about that, those deep rejuvenation times, and how you look at those.
Yeah. I had these coaches. This sounds very like euphemistic, or I mean, it is a euphemism, but um, I used to kind of like about it, but now I really get the wisdom of it. These coaches that I worked with always called injuries opportunities. That is like we weren't even like allowed to call them injuries. It's like my body just gave me an opportunity. My body is giving me an opportunity. Like literally, that is the language that we had to use. Every injury was an opportunity.
It's good, it's
Um,
good, yeah.
and so, but now I can see the wisdom in it now better than younger Blaine. The younger Blaine was like, "Can we just call it an injury? Like, I'm screwed. I have an injury. I don't feel opportunistic at this time." But I'm in a different place now, different place now. So it's the yin, yes. I think, Lauren, I was listening to you. If you don't have your cycle, you have the moon. And so, if it works for you, it could be like new moon or something like that. If you're trying to find your rhythm where you more, use the moon, the actual moon cycle and not your personal moon cycle. To have your deep yin days. And I'm currently studying 5 element nutrition, which I love. We will be having future conversations about 5 element nutrition. But, the yes, it's a 5 element nutrition course where we're actually doing recipes and cooking and learning about the way food, the chemicals of food with balance our elements and herbs and lots of herbs and all of that. It's also 5 element wellness. And some of the books that I have are really 5 element wellness books. And this concept of yin deficiency is talked about. There are different diagnoses you get in Chinese medicine if you're working with a Chinese medicine doctor or an acupuncturist or something like that. And mine literally is yin deficiency. I have yin deficiency, that is. And anybody who knows me is not surprised. Um, in these postmenopausal years, as we're aging, it's more and more critical not to be in this state of yin deficiency. And I'll even just pick kidney. I mean, that's just a really obvious one, an obvious yin organ and energy system. And I mean, just aging longevity, I don't like a yardstick or something, something that we need to watch that we're not depleting our kidney. And so maybe when I was a 25-year-old athlete, I could kind of power through yin deficiency, but it's going to cost me more now if I'm really depleting kidney, just to focus on kidney in this conversation. As I age, the cost of that is going to become greater and greater and greater if I don't do this tuning in. And this is exactly what Lauren said is in these 5 element wellness books that I am studying, is not making sure my yin is not too depleted. And the ways that I paused because there was something else I was going to say about this. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So in the olden days of Chinese medicine, when they were really talking about yin deficiency and exercise, because we do talk about exercise in these books, it was not a sedentary lifestyle. And, because some of this is 9,000 years old, what we're talking about here. 9,000 years ago, sedentary lifestyle was not a thing, not a thing. Where today, we do have this sedentary lifestyle. And so many people really need, they can have yang deficiency. And yang deficiency is also a thing. And so it's this balance, but as we're aging and someone who likes to be active like Lauren and I, we're very in our body people. We like to move our body. We like to sweat. We like to breathe hard. We like to physically challenge ourselves. Not everybody's like that. But Lauren and we're very like in the body, and we like that aspect of having a human body and having to have fun with the human body and work it and use it and, be in community with it and work out with our friends and all of the ways that we like to do it. And so with checking in, like Lauren said, and making sure that we're not too depleted, it's not my nature to care, because I just love to be out having fun and doing my thing. And I have my goals and my races and my plan, and all that sort of thing. But at what cost? And that's what I have to really step back. And so the ways that I can tune in, and this is something I'm, making myself do and getting more habitual about and all that, am I, in classic exercise jargon, we would say overtrained. Am I overtrained? And do I need to take it back? Which doesn't mean sit on the couch and do nothing. But do I need to do some easier movement for a day or two while my body can come back to homeostasis before I hit it hard again? And for me, sleep is a big one. Even I have very great sleep hygiene. We've talked about sleep. I'm kind of a role model as far as just being, when I go to bed and when I get up and, everything I do to try to have a lifestyle where sleep is a priority. But if I do all those things and I can't sleep, or I'm kind of feel like I'm sleeping okay, but that the alarm has to wake me up. That is one, because I usually wake up 5 to 15 minutes before my alarm. 9 nights out of 10. I do set an alarm all the time because it's really important to me that I stay on my schedule, because if I sleep too late, then when I try to go to bed that night, I'm not tired because I slept too late, and I kind of get into it. I start everything downhill from there. But if my alarm wakes me up and I'm just in deep sleep and the alarm wakes me up and I start to wake up and I feel not really rested, that is a signal to me that I'm probably yin depleted. And it doesn't mean that I have to go back to bed for 4 more hours or anything like that. But it does mean the way I move through my day and the way I nourish myself and the way I adjust my schedule and that sort of thing is in more of a restorative, I start to move in a restorative mode. And so then I can start to fill my yin cup, for lack of a better word, and come back into homeostasis. And so I can continue with that.
Do you ever go
And
back
I
to
do.
sleep
Lauren
for the
asked
4
me,
hours? No, never
no,
go back to if you wake up tired, you
no,
never go back to sleep.
I
Okay.
don't. I don't. I would potentially go to bed earlier that night, but I've tried that. I don't, because I've tried it. And then that night I can't fall asleep. So then I've gone to bed at 8:30, but it's 12:30 and I haven't fallen asleep yet. And then what, 4 hours again and so I have to keep it on the schedule, or else the schedule just falls apart. I have tried, trust me. It doesn't serve me in the long run. It throws me off for several nights. But when I check in, because Lauren and I were talking a little bit about our what do you do when you wake up? And mine's pretty simple. wake up either naturally or with the alarm, and I pull my knees into my chest and I do a little supine twist. I like drop my knees to one side. And so I'm kind of like in a pseudo fetal position, kind of, but also doing a little bit of like a stretch for my back. And I just kind of breathe and lay there. And, I'm coming into consciousness and coming into the day and checking in with myself and how did I sleep. If I had dreams, I try to remember them and think through whatever messages might have been coming to me from dream world, like while I'm laying there. I love to try to remember my dreams. And then I like flip my legs to the other side and balance it out and kind of supine twist and continue to think about that. And then, and this whole thing is maybe like 1 to 2 minutes per side. And then, put my feet on the floor and sit up and stand up and go. Often my partner Burke is like asleep next to me. And so I can't be like too rustling around over there. Then I have to kind of quietly leave the bedroom and go. But when I was a younger athlete working with coaches, they would make us check our heart rate in the morning. And if we had an elevated heart rate, we would know what our normal resting heart rate would be. And then, kind of what our normal heart rate would be in the morning. And that's a sign of overtraining or yin deficiency. They would have never have used those words, would be an elevated heart rate in the morning. And then we would adjust the training until my heart rate was back down into a normal way. So Lauren,
Yeah,
what do you
I've done
think?
that one too. I actually learned that not from training, but from, well, I suppose it is training in its own way, with Dr. John Douillard, who's an Ayurvedic doctor, and big friend of EM yoga. We're actually got to get him on our podcast sometime soon. But so he talks about that. So you take your pulse every morning just with one of those little finger clips. Like, it's not a big thing. And then you find what your baseline is. And if you're over or if you're under that by like 2 or 3 beats, that's an indication that your body needs a rest day. So however you're going to define rest day, right? You're going to take it down a notch, and you're going to do something that's a little more yin feeding. And I really like that. I did that. I've done it several, different times for spans of time, because it's giving you that, it's like that biofeedback, right? So not that you're not checking in with yourself, but you're getting, because you're literally checking in with your own heartbeat, but you get to see it. It's not just your brain and your mind checking in, right? You're looking at a metric, and I really did appreciate that. And especially for those of you that are looking to track, like, when is it appropriate to take rest days? Like, your body will tell you. Your body tells you, right? It's just how do you listen? And so what I do in the morning when I wake up is I do a couple of different things. If I'm find myself laying on my back, I'll do my feet. If you're not looking, you can't see. I'm just like doing my hands back and forth. As I'll do my feet, I'll lie in bed and I'll flex and point and flex and point and flex and point, and sort of get that whole back line of my body awakened. And then I'll often roll to the side and I'll do a long hold hookup. So for those of you that don't know what a hookup is, a one finger in the belly button and one finger between the eyebrows, and then you press in and you lightly pull up. Generally, we'll do that for 3 breaths in the nose and out the mouth. But if I'm doing a longer hold, I'll just hold that. And I'll often sometimes hold at the back of the skull, the very top of the neck, back of the skull. There's like a little hollow there, right where the spinal cord kind of dives in, and your finger just slips right in there. That's another hold, belly button and then the back of the skull there. And I'll hold those just nose breathing the whole time, and for quite some time. And what that does is it brings energetically the whole body into alignment. So I really like that as a start to my day. And while I'm doing that, I'll often do what Blaine was talking about. I'll kind of tune in, try to remember dreams. Sometimes I'll get a little snippet and I'll be able to crawl back into the dream a little bit and kind of pull things out of it. And then I'll also check in with my heart, and like my soul heart, as opposed to the pumping heart, the soul heart, and how am I feeling today, and how do I want to feel today? And And I'll often bring, Louis, my little dog who's no longer in fur body, I'll bring him, or he is there in the heart, and he'll kind of fly out and fly around the room a little bit and give me some cues to the day. And all of that, again, it's not a long period of time, but sometimes I will hold that hook up for, 2 or 3 minutes, which is quite a long time. And then I'll sit on the edge of the bed before I just jump up and feet on the floor and just feel myself where I am on the floor. And so that's another way, that's how I sort of check in, but clearly it's not foolproof because I had this experience and it's, Blaine said we've been waiting to have this conversation for a while. This is not the first time that I've injured myself overtraining. And yes, yay for opportunities to learn, but I also get really frustrated with myself for not listening and it's especially like when I hurt myself while I'm doing something fun, like, I was increasing some running in the fall because I really like that the pounding of my bones, and again, that's something also really good for longevity. Now, when I say I run, it's like so different than Blaine. She'll run, marathons and half marathons, and her like light day is 8 miles. I was literally running, I started with a half a mile and I built up to, I think I was up to almost 2 miles. So not a lot, but then I hurt myself running. I hurt an Achilles tendon and I had to stay off of that for a while. So when these things happen, then I get really frustrated because I'm trying to do all these things because I love them and I want to get healthy and strong. And it's really emotionally difficult then when you're trying to do all the right things and you just get literally your kind of legs knocked out from under you. And so, Blaine, I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that as well. I don't know if you've had injuries I mean, I know, some bike wrecks and stuff, but I don't know if you've had injuries from training. I guess I want to say the wrong way because if I'm injuring myself training or working out or playing out, then I'm doing something wrong.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this gets into this is like a metaphysical conversation right now, or Louise A, or like or like where are these injuries coming from? Um, I you know, I've definitely had injuries like being hit by a car on my bike and having, a lot of like, kind of traumatic injuries from that. I've had overuse injuries. I've definitely had injuries. I um I don't I think I can say I'm not a super injury prone person. My partner Burke will sometimes, something will be wrong and he'll just be like, "You never get injured." And I'll be like, "I'm injured right now. My IT band hurts." But I am not super injury prone. And the overuse, I will say this, I have learned that every single time I felt like an injury came out of nowhere, when I really looked back, it did not come out of nowhere. I had a little twinge. I had, I got whispers that I ignored always. And so, I mean, that is a lesson for me, especially now as I age and recovering from injury is not quite the same as when I was younger, listening to the whispers. Because if I'm honest with myself, there was always a whisper,
Yes. Yes.
always.
Yes.
And then, this is kind of we're running up on time, but more like on the metaphysical. When the pandemic happened, I owned a yoga studio. I was shut down. It was a very intense time. And, the world was shut down, but I could go run outside because, gyms were closed down. I mean, everything was closed down, but you could go on the road. And so I was running on the road, and it was one of those times that I really can say I put my foot down and just pain just like shot through my foot and I was down. I mean, I didn't fall, but I was like, I can't run on this foot. I was like done. I mean, just like this pain like through my foot. And I had my phone with me and I called Burke. It's the only time I've ever done this running. And I was like, can you please get in the car and come pick me up? Like I was sitting on the curb. And it was just, I was done. So then, it started to feel better. And then Burke and I went on a hike like 10 days later or something. And I stepped off like a rock hiking on my other foot and twisted my ankle to the point that we thought I maybe broke it. My other foot. And so it was swollen, the whole thing. And so I went to my because everything shut down, but I have a chiropractor who's my friend. And so she met me at her office and she did the tuning fork thing where she was like doing the tuning fork and sticking the end of it on my bones and, to see if it was actually, and she was like, it's not broken. Like I wasn't like screaming or something like when she put the tuning fork on my bone. And so it wasn't broken. It was a bad sprain. And then right after that, I went to Lolo, Montana to Susan Stone's house because I was in my first year of Eden Energy Medicine practitioner training. And Susan, even though the world was shut down, was still letting us come to her home and have our live classes. And so I did a session with her while I was there. And, we were talking about my yoga studio was shut down, just everything, I have a landlord, I have to pay rent, I can't have classes. I was just like in this space. And then she knew my ankle was hurt because I was there with the hurt ankle, but I kind of told her about the other foot and this one. And she just looked at me and said, well, Blaine, you don't have a leg to stand on. And it was so profound, like, I was like, I don't, and I like like, I don't have a leg to stand on right now, and so those are the things, Lauren, I cannot explain.
Okay, you brought up metaphysically, you brought up Louise Hay, so we have to go there now for a second because you mentioned that that was a profound experience, and I wonder how the healing progressed from that forward. I want to say more, but but let me ask that question first before I say my piece about Louise Hay. How did the healing progress from that forward? Did it accelerate? Did you like what happened once you got that aha moment?
Yeah, it totally accelerated, and Susan is an acupuncturist, so she got out the needles, and so I think she helped me, and then we did some talk therapy, and I think she helped me, and then from that point, absolutely, it accelerated.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So, okay, so back to how this whole conversation started, and we'll wrap this up. So I hurt my back, and I'm on my back, um, and I'm texting with another friend of mine who's very insightful, and I'm like, big lesson that I learned, I just always have to listen to myself. That was it, and I'm bummed, but oh, actually, it was a phone call. And so I was like, almost, my voice was like, I'm bummed, but whatever. I got my lesson and I'm just gonna kind of relax here. And she's like, I wonder if, you've looked at all and Louise Hay or whatever. And I was like, I sometimes I do, and I didn't for this, but I know what my lesson is or whatever. And then we got off the phone because I was just not in any state to be talking. And then I'm like, oh, it's Heather. She always knows what she's talking about. Let me look at Louise Hay. So I like crawl into my office and I find my Louise Hay book and I look up the two vertebrae that it is. And I almost like burst out laughing. I'm like, seriously? Like, it's so right on that I was like, how did I overlook that? Like, this is not at all a lesson about like, I need to take a rest day or I should have listened to my body. And so I'm lying there in bed and I start doing, she gives you these affirmations to do. So I do the affirmations like quite like no joke. Like I do them. Like I really like I own them and I'm like, I'm holding points that will help that get in more. I'm calming triple warmer down so that my body will take in these affirmations. And I do the affirmations and I'm just like, do I feel better? Huh. I'm like, that's too fast. That could not be that fast. And so I dismissed that. And then I had to do a podcast. We were filming a podcast with a guest. So it wasn't like if it was just with Blaine, I could have said, hey, can we reschedule? But we had a guest coming on and I'd already rescheduled. I was not going to reschedule. I was going to do this podcast. And sitting was excruciating. And I was like, this is going to suck. I'm so bummed that I have to do this, but I want to be really present for it. So I get in this chair, and I like come into presence, which I can do. Like I know how to do that. So I'm like fully there when we do the podcast. I'm fully expecting that once it's over and I get up from the chair, I'm going to be just like totally like a cripple and in excruciating pain and just limp back to my bed. And I got up and I was like, I still feel good. It's better. How did that happen from just reciting these affirmations from Louise Hay? Because so much, not so much, everything is connected. The physiology, the mental, the spiritual, and most of all, that runs the cascade of all of that is the emotional. And so that was the lesson. And my resistance to like, I'm not going to look at that and like, whatever, brush it aside because I already know my answers, that resistance. And then just the softening around it. Well, let me just go take a peek. And then that recognition of, whatever the in my back that I wasn't bringing into consciousness. So when exactly, you didn't step on anything and you got this pain through your foot. And then that caused the other foot. And like, you did not have a leg to stand on. Once the recognition of that comes through, then the physiology, which always lags behind, can then catch up and heal. And for me, in my case, I was skiing again 6 days later, which had that injury happened at another time, and had that injury been more like what it taught me was that injury wasn't even physiological. That injury was emotional, and the physiology like seized up. And once everything could relax, the emotional piece, the physiology could relax. There was no underlying injury that would have kept me. I didn't tear anything or break anything. It was just the physiology had gripped on, and then it relaxed and let go. And I'm like fine again. And 5 days after that, I was fine again. Um, so anyway, that's, you brought up the metaphysics. So we had to go there, which took us totally off, a full circle from like when to know how to take a rest day or not. Maybe your rest day is, deep meditation or prayer or something like that. I don't know. I'll leave it to you, Blaine. Wrap us up here as the competitive athlete. How would you tie this up?
See, that's a great story. And it's the great unknown, like we try to know and understand and read and practice. And then, oh my gosh, most of it, we just don't know. We just don't know. Um, what we do know is that Western medicine does not have all the answers that we know.
We know.
And we do our energy work and we do our asana, our physical asana with our yoga to make our body stronger. And we do our exercise for our heart and our blood pressure and our bone density and to decrease the risk of muscle loss, sarcopenia, which as postmenopausal women, it's going to happen. We are going to lose muscle. And so it's trying to mitigate that as best as possible so we can have where you started, Lauren, this not only a long life, but a long, healthy life where the period of time between where we lose our health and where we lose our life is like as compressed as it possibly can. Or maybe we should end with the Donna quote, right? Let me see if I can get it. We want to die young, as old as we possibly can. So we will close with that. Thanks, listeners. If you have thoughts, comments, anything like that, please put them in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And feel free to also rate our podcast. It really helps us get the podcast out to more people if you give us a rating. And we will talk to you next time. Bye. Alrighty, energy fans, that's a wrap on another positively charged episode of Energy Works. Lauren, this is the part where we get to use our energy puns.
It's been electrifying, hasn't it, Blaine? We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
If you're feeling amped up and you want to keep your energy flowing, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform.
And we'd love to hear from you. So please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates. So light up our inbox.
And spark a conversation with your friends to tell them about us. And we'll see you next time on Energy Works.